The Historical Society of Quincy and Adams County is looking to raise money to renovate the History Museum. It's not had significant upgrades since 1929.
And officials say the building has accessibility issues as well. WGEM's Joseph Lawler stopped by the museum this morning. So Joseph, what renovations are they hoping to make?
Daniel and Raja, the renovation plan is separated into 3 phases. That will include the addition to the building, moving the Lincoln Gallery, and a handful of additional renovations. The goal is to make the museum accessible to everyone in the community. Members of the Historical Society of Quincy and Adams County have taken on the challenge of raising $2 million to renovate the History Museum.
There's a couple things about this I think that make this pretty special. Number one, this is an iconic Quincy structure. Fundraising Committee Chairman Jack Freiberg says addressing the museum's accessibility is top of mind. Both coming up those steps and then going up the steps to what is the second floor is actually daunting. Project manager Will Klingner says the first phase of construction would be a 37-square-foot addition to the museum. That would house an elevator, emergency staircase, and accessible restrooms. Phase 1 also involves exterior repairs to fix moisture issues.
And kind of doing upgrades to the overall building to make sure that everything is ADA compliant and we can get all the different demographics from the society into the building.
Klingner says working with older buildings can be difficult, but he says they're excited to take on the challenge.
Now we're putting kind of those modern components, tying all 3 of those eras of construction kind of together. So it'll be a very unique challenge.
Freiberg says these building additions will not compromise the historical value of the museum, which was built in 1888.
We not only want this to be handicap accessible, we also want the preservation of this landmark.
The second and third phases will include additional renovations. They will also include moving the Lincoln Gallery, which is next to the John Wood Mansion, into the museum. Depending on fundraising efforts, they hope to break ground in late summer or early fall of this year. Daniel?
All right, thank you, Joseph. The HSQAC already received $1.5 million in construction grants from the state of Illinois, and they say that will cover about 59% of the project. You can find more fundraising information at this story at WGEM.com.